The invitation arrived like a quiet threat, embossed in gold, sealed with a name he hadn't spoken in years. Yi Min stared at it for a long moment, his expression unreadable, the city lights reflecting off the floor-to-ceiling glass behind him. His empire thrived in silence and shadows, deals made in whispers, enemies erased without a trace. He didn't attend weddings. He didn't revisit the past. And yet, here he was, turning the card over between his fingers as if it carried something heavier than paper. We're actually going. Amara's voice cut through his thoughts, calm but curious. She stood by the door, tablet in hand, dressed in her usual sharp elegance. Simple, precise, and impossible to ignore. She wasn't just his assistant. She was the only person who spoke to him without fear, the only one who didn't flinch at the rumors surrounding him, and perhaps the only one who didn't realize just how closely he watched her. It would be impolite not to, he replied. Amara raised an eyebrow. Well, since when do you care about being polite? A faint smirk tugged at his lips, gone as quickly as it appeared. Since it benefits me, she stepped closer, placing the tablet on his desk. Or since it involves her? Silence settled between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Yi Min finally set the invitation down. You're coming with me, Amara blinked. It's to your ex's wedding? Yes. Oh, that sounds like a terrible idea, admitted. Still, you'll come. There was no arguing with him when his tone shifted like that, low final. But Amara didn't back down easily. Why me? Yi Min met her gaze, something unreadable flickering in his dark eyes. Because I trust you. The answer lingered in the air, unexpected and heavier than she anticipated. Trust wasn't something he gave lightly, if at all. She exhaled slowly, then nodded. All right, I'll come. The day of the wedding arrived wrapped in elegance and quiet tension. The venue was extravagant, filled with people who smiled too much and meant too little. Yi Min walked in like he owned the world, his presence alone enough to shift the atmosphere. Conversations faltered. Eyes followed, whispers spread, and beside him, Amara walked with the same composed confidence, her deep-colored dress catching the light, her head held high. She could feel the stares, curious, judgmental, some even hostile, but she ignored them. She had learned long ago not to shrink for anyone. Stay close, Yi Min murmured. I'm not going anywhere, she replied. But the moment they stepped further inside, the past came rushing toward them. She stood near the altar, radiant in white, her smile perfect and practiced. For a second, everything seemed to freeze. The bride's eyes locked onto Yi Min, and something flickered there. Shock, maybe regret, maybe something more complicated. You came, she said when he approached, her voice soft but tight. You invited me, Yi Min replied coolly. Her gaze shifted to Amara, lingering just a second too long. And you brought company. Amara offered a polite smile. Assistant. The word felt deliberate, grounding, but something about the way the bride looked at her made it feel like a challenge. I didn't think you'd be the type to bring someone, she said lightly, though the edge in her voice betrayed her. I'm full of surprises, Yi Min answered. For a moment, it felt like the world around them disappeared, leaving only the tension between what was and what could never be again. Then someone called the bride's name, and the moment broke. As the ceremony began, Amara stood beside Yi Min, watching quietly. She wasn't sure what she expected, to see pain, anger, maybe even indifference. But his face remained unreadable, carved from stone. Are you okay? She whispered. He didn't look at her. Why wouldn't I be? You're watching your ex marry someone else. And? Amara studied him, searching for cracks in the armor. Then most people would feel something. He was silent for a long moment. Then finally he said, most people aren't me. Yi Min moved through it effortlessly, commanding attention without trying. People greeted him with forced smiles, careful words. No one wanted to offend him. No one wanted to get too close. Amara stayed by his side, observing everything. The power dynamics, the unspoken tension, the way people treated him like both a king and a threat. You don't belong here, she said quietly. Neither do you, he replied. Then why are we here? Yi Min glanced at her, something softer in his expression now, to close a chapter. Before she could respond, the bride approached again, this time alone. Can we talk? She asked. Yi Min hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. Briefly, Amara started to step away, but his hand lightly caught her wrist. Not forceful, just enough to stop her. Stay. The bride noticed, her smile tightening slightly. I see. What do you want? Ye Min asked, cutting straight to the point. She took a breath. I wanted to see if you'd changed. And her eyes flicked between him and Amara. I guess I have my answer. Something unspoken passed between them. Old memories, old wounds, things that couldn't be undone. You look happy, Ye Min said finally. I am, she replied. Then after a pause, are you? He didn't answer right away. Instead, his gaze shifted to Amara just for a second. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but it was enough. I'm getting there, he said. The bride nodded slowly, as if understanding something she couldn't quite put into words. Then, I'm glad you came. And just like that, it was over. When she walked away, the weight in the air seemed to lift. Ye Min exhaled quietly, tension he didn't even realize he was holding finally easing. That was intense, Amara said. He huffed a soft laugh. You handled it well. A foe did you, she replied. They stood there for a moment, the noise of the party fading into the background. Then Ye Min turned to her, really looking at her now, not as his assistant, not as someone who worked for him, but as something else entirely. A dance with me, Amara blinked. Oh, what? You heard me. I don't think this is part of my job description. I'll consider it a temporary promotion. She hesitated, then sighed. You're impossible. Yet you're still here. She shook her head, but there was a small smile on her lips as she placed her hand in his. He pulled her closer, guiding her effortlessly onto the dance floor. For the first time that night, Ye Min didn't feel like a man haunted by his past. And Amara didn't feel like just an assistant standing in someone else's shadow. For a few quiet moments, they were just two people, moving in sync, surrounded by a world that no longer mattered. And somewhere between the music and the silence, something shifted. Something neither of them could ignore anymore. The music faded into something softer, slower, almost like the night itself was holding its breath. Ye Min didn't let go of her hand when the dance ended. If anything, his grip tightened slightly, as if he had just realized how easily she could slip away if he wasn't careful. Amara noticed. Oh, you can let go now, she said quietly, though her voice lacked its usual firmness. Do you want me to? He asked. The question wasn't simple. It wasn't about the dance. It wasn't even about the moment. It felt like something deeper, something neither of them had named yet. Amara met his gaze steady but thoughtful. You're asking dangerous questions, and you're avoiding them. A faint smile touched her lips. Now that's part of my job, remember? Managing risk. His eyes darkened slightly, amused but also intrigued. You've never treated me like a risk. That's because I know how to handle you. Do you? He murmured. For a second, the air between them grew heavier, charged with something unspoken. Then Amara gently pulled her hand back, creating just enough distance to breathe again. We should leave, she said. You've done what you came here to do. Ye Min didn't argue this time. He simply nodded, his expression returning to that controlled calm he wore like armor. But something had shifted. The distance he usually kept from everyone, including her, felt thinner now, like a wall with cracks forming. They exited the venue together, the noise and lights fading behind them. Outside, the night was cooler, quieter, the city stretching endlessly around them. The car was already waiting. As they settled inside, silence filled the space, not uncomfortable, but heavy with everything that hadn't been said. You didn't have to bring me, Amara said after a while. I know. Then why did you? Ye Min leaned back slightly, his gaze fixed ahead. Because I didn't want to go alone. She studied him carefully. That wasn't the kind of answer he gave. Not vague, not emotional, just honest in a way that felt almost unfamiliar. You could have taken anyone, she pointed out. I didn't want anyone, he replied. Then, after a brief pause, I wanted you. Her heartbeat stuttered, just for a second. She looked away, focusing on the city lights passing by the window. You shouldn't say things like that, she said softly. Why not? Because you don't mean them the way they sound. Ye Min turned his head slightly, watching her now. And how do they sound? Like something complicated, she admitted. A faint smirk appeared on his lips. Everything about me is complicated. That's exactly the problem. The car slowed as they approached a red light. The pause felt symbolic, like the moment itself was asking them to decide whether to move forward or stay where they were. Amara, he said quietly. She glanced at him. Do you trust me? The question caught her off guard. Not because of what it was, but because of how he asked it. There was no arrogance, no command. Just something raw, almost uncertain. I work for you, she replied. That's not what I asked. She hesitated, then sighed. A trust isn't simple with someone like you, and yet you're still here. Well, I am, she said, but that doesn't mean I don't see the risks. Yi Min nodded slowly as if he expected that answer. Good. You shouldn't ignore them. Then why are you asking me to? I'm not, he said. I'm asking you to choose anyway. The light turned green and the car moved again. But the conversation lingered, unfinished, unresolved. When they arrived at his penthouse, the city below shimmered like a sea of stars. Amara stepped out first, taking a deep breath as if trying to clear her thoughts. Nights like this were dangerous, not because of what happened, but because of what they stirred. Inside, the space felt different, warmer somehow, or maybe it was just her. I'll prepare tomorrow's schedule, she said, slipping back into her usual role. Yi Min watched her for a moment. You don't have to. I always do, and not tonight. She paused, turning to face him. Then, what do you want me to do? The question hung between them. Yi Min stepped closer, closing the distance slowly, deliberately. Stop acting like this is just work. Her breath caught slightly, but she didn't step back. That's what it is. Is it? Yes, she said, though her voice wasn't as steady as before. He studied her face, searching for something beneath the surface. We're a terrible liar. And you're crossing a line? Maybe, he admitted. But you didn't stop me. The tension built again, stronger this time. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something undeniable, something neither of them could easily walk away from. Amara shook her head slightly, trying to ground herself. This is exactly why I keep things professional. Because you're afraid? Her eyes I'm not afraid. Then prove it. She stepped closer now, closing the remaining distance herself. You think this is a game? No, he said softly. I think this is the first honest moment we've had. For a second, neither of them moved. The world outside faded completely, leaving only the quiet intensity of the room. Then Amara spoke, her voice low but clear. Oh, you don't do honest moments, Yi Min. You control everything. You calculate. You decide what people see. And you, he asked. I survive. She replied. Something in that answer hit differently. Yi Min's expression shifted just slightly. You think I don't? I think you're used to winning. And you're not? She let out a small, humorless laugh. Not in the same way. Silence fell again, but this time it felt heavier, filled with truths neither of them usually shared. You don't know everything about me, he said quietly. Then tell me something real. He hesitated. That alone was enough to surprise her. I didn't go to that wedding for closure, he admitted finally. Then why? Because I needed to be sure. Of what? His gaze locked onto hers, unwavering. That I could walk away from my past without looking back. And can you? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out, his hand brushing lightly against hers. Not forceful, not demanding, just there. Yes, he said. I can. Amara swallowed, her pulse quickening. And what happens now? Now? He repeated. Yes. You've closed your chapter, so what's next? Yi Min's expression softened just a fraction. That depends. On what? On whether you're still planning to keep this strictly professional. She looked at him, really looked this time, not as her boss, not as the man people feared, but as someone standing at the edge of something uncertain. You don't make things easy, she said. I don't try to. A small smile appeared on her lips despite herself. That's obvious. He stepped back slightly, giving her space, but not distance. You can walk away if you want. And if I don't, they stay. The simplicity of it was almost disarming. Amara took a slow breath, her mind racing, weighing every possibility, every consequence. This wasn't just about feelings. It was about power, trust, risk, everything she had built her life around avoiding. But still, she didn't leave. I'll stay, she said quietly. Yi Min nodded once as if that was enough, and for now, it was. But neither of them realized just how much that single choice would change everything, or how quickly the world they stood in would start to unravel. Morning didn't arrive gently. It broke through the penthouse in sharp lines of light, cutting across glass and marble like a reminder that whatever had shifted the night before hadn't been a dream. Amara was already awake, standing near the window with a tablet in her hand, trying to rebuild the distance she had so carefully maintained for months. The city below was moving as always, unaware that something subtle but dangerous had begun to change high above it. She heard him before she turned. Yi Min's footsteps were quiet, controlled, but she had learned the rhythm of them. He stopped a few feet behind her, not speaking right away. "You're early," he said finally. "I'm always early." That's not what I meant." Amara turned then, her expression composed. "Oh, we have a meeting at 10, a call at noon, and 3 pending deals that need your approval. I thought it would be better to start the day normally." Normally," he repeated, as if testing the word. "Ah?" Yes, his gaze lingered on her a second too long. "And last night." Her grip tightened slightly around the tablet. "Last night doesn't change anything." "That's not true." "It has to be," she replied, firm now. But for both of us, Yi Min walked past her, pouring himself a drink without asking if she wanted one. "You're good at pretending, and you're good at making things complicated." He let out a quiet breath, almost like a laugh but without humor. "So we go back to this?" "This works," she said. "For who?" For us," she answered, though even she could hear the slight hesitation. Yi Min didn't push further, not yet, but the silence that followed felt different. Less like distance, more like restraint. The day moved forward quickly. Meetings, calls, negotiations. Yi Min was as sharp as ever, precise and unreadable, while Amara remained at his side, efficient and focused. Efficient and focused. To anyone watching, nothing had changed, but underneath, everything had. It was late afternoon when the first crack appeared. Amara noticed the shift before anyone else did. A message came through. Encrypted, urgent. She read it once, then again, her expression tightening ever so slightly. Yi Min saw it immediately. "What is it?" Nothing," she said automatically. "Amara," she hesitated, then handed him the tablet. "It's one of your rivals. Movement in the east sector." As I scanned the message quickly. "It is this time," she said. "They're not hiding it, which means they want to be seen," he finished. "Exactly." A dangerous silence followed. "Prepare the car," he said. "I'm coming with you." No. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "That wasn't a suggestion. And this isn't a discussion," he replied. "You'll stay here." "I'm your assistant," she said. "If something's happening, I need to be there. You need to be safe. And you don't?" "That's different." "It shouldn't be." Yi Min stepped closer, his voice lowering. "Amara," she held her ground. "I'm not staying behind." For a moment, it looked like he might argue further, but then something shifted in his expression. Calculation, acceptance, maybe even respect. He said, "But you stay close. No risks." "I don't take unnecessary ones," she replied. That's not reassuring." Despite the tension, there was a flicker of something familiar between them, something almost like understanding. The drive was quieter than usual. The city outside seemed darker now, heavier, as if it knew something was about to happen. Amara kept her focus sharp, watching every detail, every movement. "Talk to me," she said suddenly. "About what?" "About what we're walking into." Yi Min leaned back slightly. "I message." From who?" "Someone who thinks I've gotten distracted." Her gaze shifted to him. "Have you?" A pause. Then, no. She studied him, not entirely convinced, but she didn't push further. When they arrived, the tension was immediate. The building was quiet, too quiet. Yi Min stepped out first, his presence alone enough to shift the atmosphere. "Stay behind me," he said. "I heard you the first time." They moved inside together, every step measured. The air felt wrong, thick, heavy, like a storm waiting to break. And then it did. The first sound was sharp, gunfire echoing through the space. Amara reacted instantly, ducking as Yi Min pulled her back, shielding her without hesitation. "Ambush," he muttered. No kidding," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos. More shots rang out. Shadows moved. This wasn't random. It was planned precise. "Stay low," he said. "I'm not dead weight," she shot back. "I know," he replied. "That's why you're still alive." They moved together instinctively, like they had done this 100 times before, even though they hadn't. Yi Min handled the threat with cold efficiency, every move calculated, every shot deliberate. But even he couldn't control everything. One of the attackers came from the side fast, unexpected. Amara saw it before he did. Yi Min, she moved without thinking, pulling him just enough to throw off the aim. The shot missed its mark, but not completely. Pain hit sharp and sudden. She stumbled slightly, her breath catching. Yi Min's expression changed instantly. "Amara." "I'm fine," she said, though her voice faltered just a little. You're not. It's just a graze." Another shot cut her off. Yimin didn't hesitate this time. He pulled her closer, moving them both out of range, his focus sharper than ever. The fight ended quickly after that. It always did with him. Silence followed, but it wasn't calm. It was heavy, filled with everything that had just happened. Yimin turned to her immediately. Let me see. I said I'm fine. Amara? Something in his tone made her stop arguing. She let him check. The wound wasn't deep, but it was enough. His jaw tightened. You shouldn't have been here. I didn't let you walk into that alone. She shot back. I'm not happening. That wasn't your call. It was when you made it mine, she replied. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then he exhaled slowly, something close to frustration, or maybe something else. You could have been seriously hurt, but I wasn't. That's not the point. What then? What is? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at her, not as his assistant, not as someone who worked for him, but as someone who had just risked everything without hesitation. That I can't afford to lose you, he said finally. The words landed harder than anything else that night. Amara went still. That's not, she started then stopped. Not what? He asked quietly. Not simple, she finished. It was never going to be. The distance between them felt smaller now, despite everything. You keep saying things like that, she said softly, because they're true. And what am I supposed to do with that? Yimin stepped closer, his voice low but steady. Decide if you're still willing to stay. She looked at him, her thoughts racing, her heart still unsteady from everything that had just happened. This wasn't safe. This wasn't simple. This wasn't something she could control. And yet, I haven't left yet, she said. Yimin nodded once, his gaze unwavering. Then don't, he replied. And for the second time, she chose not to walk away, even as the world around them made it clear that staying might cost her everything. The ride back was quieter than any silence they had shared before. Not calm, never calm, but heavy, like the air itself was watching them. The city lights blurred past the windows, streaks of gold and white cutting through the darkness, but neither of them paid attention. Amara pressed her hand lightly against her side, ignoring the dull sting that pulsed with every movement. She wasn't going to complain. Not now. Not in front of him. Yimin noticed anyway. You're bleeding through the bandage. I said it's a graze. That doesn't mean ignore it. It also doesn't mean panic. His jaw tightened slightly, irritation flashing, not at her but at the situation, at himself. Thought you shouldn't have moved like that, he said. She let out a soft, almost amused breath. If I didn't, you'd be the one bleeding. Hey, that's my job. That's not how this works. He turned his head then, his gaze sharp. You don't get to decide that. And you don't get to decide I stand there and watch you get shot. The tension snapped tight between them, both unwilling to back down. The car slowed as they approached a turn, the motion barely noticeable compared to the shift happening inside. You think this is something you can step into, Yimin said quietly, dangerously calm. This world, I'm already in it, she cut in. No, he said. Oh, close to it. That's different. That's different. Amara shook her head. You keep telling yourself that if it makes it easier. It's not about easy. Then what is it about? He didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched. Then softer this time, it's about keeping you alive. That should have ended the argument. It should have been enough. But it wasn't. I don't need you to protect me like that, she said. I need you to trust that I can handle myself. I do trust you, he replied. That's the problem. She frowned slightly. That doesn't make sense. It does, he said. Because trusting you means knowing you'll put yourself in danger if you think it matters. A pause, and tonight it did. Amara looked away, her reflection faint in the glass window. I made a choice. And I didn't give you that choice, he said. You don't control everything. His expression darkened slightly. I control what I can. And people? She asked. Do you control them too? He held her gaze, unflinching. No. Then stop trying with me. That landed, harder than she expected. For a moment, something in his expression shifted, something raw, almost unguarded. But it disappeared just as quickly, replaced by that familiar control. I'm not trying to control you, he said. Then what are you doing? He leaned back slightly, his voice quieter now. Trying not to lose something I didn't realize mattered this much. The words lingered. Amara didn't respond right away. She wasn't sure she could without breaking the fragile balance they were standing on. The car came to a stop outside the penthouse. Neither of them moved immediately. Then Yi Min stepped out first, circling to her side before she could even reach for the handle. He opened the door, his movements automatic, but his focus entirely on her. "Yeah, I can walk," she said. "I know." Then stop hovering." "I'm not hovering." She raised an eyebrow. "You're literally standing 2 inches away from me. And you're injured. It's not fatal." That's not the standard I'm aiming for." Despite herself, a small smile tugged at her lips. "I've been told." Inside, the penthouse felt different again. Not warm this time, but tense, like the walls themselves were aware of what had happened. "Sit," he said. "I can—" "Amara." The tone left no room for argument. She sighed, dropping onto the couch. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" "I'm not going to let this go, are you?" "No." "I thought so." He disappeared briefly, returning with a proper first aid kit. Not the quick fixes, something more thorough. Prepared. Of course he was. He knelt in front of her, his movements precise but careful. When he reached for her side, his touch was unexpectedly gentle. "Tell me if it hurts," he said. "It already does." His lips pressed into a thin line. "That's not helpful." "It's honest." He cleaned the wound in silence, his focus intense. Amara watched him, noticing the small details she usually ignored. The way his hand steadied, the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his expression softened when he thought she wasn't paying attention. "Oh, you're angry," she said quietly. "I'm not." "You are." He didn't look up. "And you?" "A good question." That made him pause. Then after a moment, "Myself." She blinked, surprised. "That's new," she said. "I don't get used to it, but it matters," she added softly. He finally looked at her then. "Oh, why?" Because it means you care. A beat." "I always care," he said. "Not like this." Silence settled again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was different. Honest in a way neither of them were used to. When he finished, he didn't move away immediately. His hands lingered just slightly, like he hadn't decided whether to let go. "You need rest," he said. "So do you." "I don't." "That's a lie." A faint smirk appeared. "I function fine without it." "That's not the same as being fine." He exhaled softly, standing up. "Or starting to sound like you're worried about me." Maybe I am." That caught him off guard. "Why?" he asked. Amara leaned back slightly, meeting his gaze. Because you're not as untouchable as you think. I never said I was. You act like it. It's necessary. Or it's a habit." He didn't answer. She tilted her head slightly. "You don't have to do that with me." Do what? Pretend you're always in control." His expression shifted again. That subtle crack in the armor. "If I'm not in control," he said quietly, "things fall apart. Not everything." You'd be surprised." Amara shook her head slightly. Maybe. But not everything has to be a fight." A small pause. Tonight was, he pointed out. "That was different." Was it?" "Yes," she said firmly. Because that wasn't about control. That was about survival." "And us?" he asked. The question hung in the air heavier than anything else. Amara didn't answer right away because she didn't have a simple answer. Finally, she said, "I don't know what us is." Neither do I, he admitted. That, more than anything, felt real. No strategy, no calculation, just uncertainty. "And that doesn't bother you?" she asked. "It should." He said. "But it doesn't." "Why not?" His gaze didn't leave hers. Because for the first time, I'm not trying to control the outcome." Her breath caught slightly. "It's risky," she said. "I know." "And you're okay with that?" "No," he said honestly. "But I'm doing it anyway." A small, quiet moment passed between them. Then Amara shifted slightly, wincing just a little. Yi Min noticed immediately. "Careful, I'm fine." "You're not fine. You worry too much." "I don't worry enough," he corrected. She let out a soft laugh. That's debatable. He stepped closer again, this time slower. "Stay tonight." She blinked. "I already am." "I mean here," he clarified. "Not as my assistant. Not working." The implication was clear. Her heart picked up slightly, but she kept her expression steady. "That's a bad idea. Probably." "And you're still suggesting it?" "Yes." She studied him carefully. "You don't give up easily, do you?" "Not when something matters." "And this matters?" His answer was immediate. "Yes." No hesitation. No doubt. Amara looked away briefly, her thoughts racing. This wasn't safe. This wasn't simple. This wasn't something she could just step into without consequences, but she was already here, already involved, already past the point of pretending it was just work. "We're asking me to cross a line," she said quietly. "I think we already did." She let out a slow breath. "And what happens after that? We find out." "Calm. That's not a plan. It's the truth." She looked back at him, at the man who controlled everything, choosing not to. At the man who never hesitated, standing here waiting. At the man she should have kept her distance from and didn't. "You're dangerous," she said softly. "I know. And not just because of your world. I know that too." Another pause. Then finally, "Okay," she said, just one word. But it changed everything. Yi-min didn't move right away, as if giving her the chance to take it back. She didn't. And this time, when the distance between them disappeared, it wasn't accidental. It wasn't uncertain. It was a choice. And neither of them realized yet just how much that choice would cost them or how quickly the consequences were already on their way.